Hello, my absolutely brilliant and beautiful astrology soulmates. It's me, Stormie Grace, and welcome to this brand new playlist that I'm creating for you, where we are going to talk all about progressions. And I'm really excited to share this information with you because have you ever had these moments? I know that you have. If you're hanging out with me, I know that you've had these moments in your life where everything is happening. Like there are just all of these things, and it feels like life is coming, or it's busy, or you have all of these things outside of you that are going on. And then you have these other seasons where there's not really anything going on, but you feel it. You feel the change is on. You feel like something is happening. This is where astrology gets really delicious because what we start to look at is what has happened in the progression of the story of your soul that is unfolding that we can see in the astrology. So, really excited. This is going to be a full playlist for you, something completely new on our channel. And to make sure that you can really get this in your bones, I've also created a worksheet for every single video because the way I teach astrology is through my method called astrofluency. And that is where I'm getting you to speak, read, and write the language of astrology. I want you to speak this with confidence, with clarity, and to be able to name and orient yourself to what's happening in your life and to be able to verbalize that. So, in the worksheets for every single video we're going to have, you're going to be able to start speaking what I'm teaching you right away. Grab your chart and then bring it further into the conversation. So, make sure you click in that description box down below. And of course, if you do not yet have your own natal chart, you'll want to grab that in the description box down below as well. And listen, if you are ready, if you know that you're at the place where life is not making that much sense anymore and you're ready to go a little further into your astrology learning because you know there's something else going on, I would love to see you at GAFA, the Grace Astrological Fluency Academy, where this is what we focus on. We help you speak, read, and write the language of astrology. We get you astro fluent so that you can go out and speak like a native. Okay, let's jump in here and talk about what this video's focus is. And in this video, we have to answer a really basic question that comes up all of the time. What is the difference between a transit and a progression? And this is a great question. Now, listen, if you are a little bit newer to astrology and you haven't watched my video on transits, go ahead over and check that out first. I'll make sure I put it at the end of this video so it's easy to find. But if you are just listening for listening's sake, then you're going to be ready to talk about these progressions. But first, we do need to describe what is a transit. And so, why is it essential to understand that? So, first of all, transits are the planets in real-time movement. So if we think about your natal chart, when you were born, this is the snapshot of the sky at the time that you were born. Boom, that's you on paper, that's you at a soul stamp, not going to change, right? But the planets after you were born, they moved on. They kept going. They kept living wherever they were going to live their lives at. So that is a transiting planet, the planets that are in real-time movement wherever they are at. Now, when we're also talking about transits and it's coming to doing the astrological work, we're talking about one of those moving planets coming along and making contact, an aspect to something in your chart. It's beginning a conversation. Now, when it lines up exactly with something in your chart, whether that be by conjunction, square, opposition, trine, sextile, this is going to produce an event. It's going to activate your chart. But the activation, as it shows up here, is an external activation. Something externally activates something in your chart. And this shows up in circumstances, events, external opportunities that come to you, and your job will be to respond to them. That is a transit. So, in other words, transits show up outside of us, right? They're happening through people we meet, depending on what kind of transit is also coming in. You might be meeting people who are heavy in that particular energy, or a job that appears, or an opportunity that disappears, a lover that disappears, right? These things can all be seen through the vibration of a transit. And the more challenging a transit, it feels like they're knocking a little bit louder at the door looking for our response. Now, another thing to consider when we are talking about the transits, and I say this and share this in this video so that you can orient yourself to your own life and think about what your experience has been here. Because the speed of the planet will also tell us a lot about how we're going to experience the events that are brought in by it. Now, when we have our outer planets, when we have Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, who we call the professor planets at GAFA, and they set the syllabus for a long-term set of lessons that are going to be unfolding. When you're having a transit of one of these planets, they move so slow that this is going to be an unfolding story over years in our life. It's not going to be, it's going to take a while for this to fully unfold from us. Now, when we have Jupiter and Saturn, who we call the tutors, who help you to shape and deliver the lessons that our professor planets have put on the syllabus of your life, they move at a bit of a moderate speed. So you can see a Jupiter or Saturn transit unfolding over months, right? But it's pretty, you get it. You get where you're in. There's not this long, drawn out period of it. It can be unfolding over months. That is very different than our messenger planets. When we're talking about Mercury, Venus, Mars, they are going to move a lot more quickly. So you can see things unfolding with these planets over weeks, okay? And so, and sometimes depending on who else is involved, if it's the moon, something can be happening in hours. It can be hours, days, minutes, weeks, right? So we shorten the duration of time depending on the speed of the planet. And we can particularly see that when we are dealing with the moon, even if we just follow it from the new to the full phases, we can see where, especially if you're particularly sensitive to the energies in your chart, we can see where circumstances are unfolding externally and getting our response, and then it's gone really quickly because the moon moves so fast. So with transits, we are primarily talking about cause and effect, right? Something is happening out externally outside of us and it's getting a response from us. It's this cause and effect dynamic that we're in. So it's happening out there, waiting for our response in here. And it can be, just depending again on the planet that's in transit and what planet in your chart and what house it's speaking in as well. We can see things like that new job, a job ending, a relationship coming, a relationship ending, all of these things step into that transit branch. But I do think the other thing to point out about transit work is that transits, because they are universal, none of us are free or exempt from any one of the transits that we're experiencing. We're all under them together, right? So it shows us how we're all kind of united to a rhythm that is playing out in the world. Now, your response to that in your personal chart is going to be different, but it's kind of a great leveler where it's like no one's exempt from Mercury retrograde. You know what I mean? So that's something to be keeping in mind. Now, what are progressions? So when we're dealing with progressions, we are dealing with, first of all, it's a symbolic technique, and we need to keep that in mind. Anything that has meaning is because we made it have meaning. So it's a symbolic technique, but the symbolism is about your inner growth and your unfolding. And as an evolutionary and humanistic astrologer, where I focus on is that this is the story of your soul unfolding itself. It's a place in the soul's journey where a new development is going to come to your attention. And unlike a transit, which brings in these external things into the chart and activates you, a progression shows us where you're at in your own progress within yourself, right? They aren't about people, places, things, circumstances, events. They're personal. It's about our identity, our maturity, our emotional development, our freedom. It is such an inside job. So the two most commonly used progressions are going to be the progression of the sun and the moon. Okay. Now the sun, when it's progressing, it moves about 1 degree per year. So this is signaling to us that, first of all, 1 degree per year, that's very steady, right? It's very steady change in what's happening for us. So you have this development of your identity or your individuality or how unique you are, whatever the expression of that particular progressed sun placement is, right? And over time, as the sun continues to progress through a different sign, or it stays in the same sign, but it switches house, this is going to give us a new chapter in your personal growth. And this is that stuff that I'm talking about where you're unfolding. Nothing's maybe even really going on in your life. And you're like, I can't tell you what, but I feel like something in me is growing or unfolding or opening or changing. This is why progressions are so important for us to be looking at, because this is going to tell us you are at a different chapter of your own growth and your own expression. And certainly, if it's a progressed sun, it's going to be in how you are experiencing and expressing yourself. It's going to be in how you experience and you express what is your purpose in this world? What is your core essence that is evolving quite gradually here with this progressed energy? Now, with the progressed moon, it of course moves much more quickly as the moon does. So we're going to see this move a degree per month. Okay, so we're going to get through an entire cycle of the zodiac in 27 months when we're following the moon. And this makes it a really important indicator for us to be paying attention to when it comes to not only the internal change and how you're responding to things, but the change in your emotional landscape, which will include, what is priority to you? How are you experiencing your emotions? How are you reacting to different things? And so when that progressed moon also makes some contact to something in your natal chart, if it makes an aspect and begins the conversation in your natal chart, especially by square or by opposition, you may feel a temporary, because it is the moon, it's quite quick, right? But powerful emotional response to something. And that doesn't need to be an external event, right? It can be an event happens and your response to it is so incredibly different that you realize you're not working with where you were emotionally previously, right? It shows up in how you're processing, how you're feeling, how you're moving through life, how you're moving through a situation. And this is also really important because while the progressions are going to have these moments that are significant for us, where they're showing us this change on the inside, when we put a progression and a transit together, we're going to see in the chart if you have the capacity or how you may have the capacity to meet certain events that are coming up. I'll talk about that in just a second. I don't want to miss out on pointing out something really important. By progression, when a planet in your chart changes direction, maybe it was retrograde in your natal chart, and by progression, it's coming direct. This is a big deal because it's going to signal to us that there is some kind of really significant or life-changing transition that's coming into your life, or a decision that you're going to make that's pretty life-changing, because it's almost like whichever direction it's coming or going from, you have access to that energy in a different way in the evolution. So the thing that I think is important about that is, like, if you have Saturn retrograde in your natal chart and then you are seeing that Saturn has come direct in a progress chart, what house is that in? What lessons might you have more access to actually create Saturnian structure around them in a bit more external ease? I can tell you in my own personal chart, Saturn is retrograde in my chart in the second house, and I always struggled with money. I had to work really hard and had to really focus in on it. And as Saturn came direct by my progress chart, I built 3 businesses just like that, right? Like I was able to put the structure to it and have the capacity to understand how to do it and commit to the discipline. So these are life-changing things that can happen. Now, as an evolutionary astrologer as well, I do also follow the progression of the nodes through that progress chart as well. And I think it's significant because it's kind of a story to tell us that it's like, this is also an unfolding of your nodal story, your nodal journey. Maybe you had your north node in the 11th house in your natal chart, and it is ending up at the MC by the time we're looking at your progress chart. You want to know this, first of all, because the destiny point of where you're working to get this to express will be more at that midheaven point. This is where you're trying to unfold. You're trying to get to the good, gushy stuff, but you won't be able to get there by an external event. It's going to have to be through your intuition, through using the skills and the tools of the sign that that nodal placement is in. So it's like you have to move more in the intuition. You have to sense your spirit through it as you are moving through that nodal energy. So when we come back, just to put this back together, the transits are external events from the planets in real placement, bringing an activation into your chart. You're waiting for the response to said external event, while a progression is happening within you. Now, when we put these two together, this is what I was saying when it gets really good, right? Let's say that a transit is bringing in something into your life where it just feels like this is like, thunder and rain and lightning and torrential downpour. But by progression, we're seeing that your internal landscape, that soil is fertile and it's ready to receive the rain and really nourish the seeds that have been planted. This is going to be a completely different experience than just saying, oh, you're having a transiting planet come to here and this could be really challenging for you. Throw your hands up, give up. It could be, well, now wait a minute. When we look at these two sections together, it does appear that you might be more ready for that than you were thinking, right? It's like if somebody's having a Saturnian transit and it's bringing a new job and a new role, right, into their life. You have to really step up, step to new responsibility. But then we see that by progression, the moon has moved into a position that is showing that you're very ready, like you're emotionally ready. You've been preparing for years to emotionally handle the responsibility of stepping into that. Or maybe Pluto is bringing circumstance into your life where you are being humbled. You are being asked to reduce, right? Because Pluto is going to say, destroy that. That can't stay here. That doesn't work anymore. But then we see, that your progressed sun is in a particular position and we go, wow, you've been waiting for years to step more deeply into that and you're humbled enough now to be able to do it. Or you've been waiting for years now to really express your authenticity. And now that these circumstances have humbled you and taken some things out of the way, you'll actually be able to really do and be who you've known yourself to be this entire time. So it's a really exciting thing to learn what the transits are and the progressions are. I hope that this video gave you an explanation and a little bit of example of how they work. But we definitely want to remember that the transit is bringing an external event. The progression is going to be bringing in an internal event. And when we put them both together, we get a much clearer picture of what's really happening on your journey. So when you are doing your astrology or when you are meeting with an astrologer, I would encourage you to ask them, do you use both transits and progressions? Because here's where you're going to get a really nice full picture. Now, listen, if you liked this breakdown and you are ready to learn to read, speak, and write the language of astrology more deeply, I would love to see you at GAFA. Click in the description box down below, get your worksheet, and check out these next two videos at the end. One will be on transits in case you haven't watched about transits yet, and the other one's going to be the next in our series, but feel free to enjoy the entire playlist. All right, my absolutely beautiful friends, I love you a ton, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.